In MeherBaba's love, we are privileged once again to meet together and share with one another our experiences and love for our beloved. I would like to express my appreciation and joy in being asked to be with you all on this very special occasion, the 11th Sahavas at Pilgrim's Pines here in California. There is little left for me to share with you of the earlier years with MeherBaba whilst he was with us in his physical form that I have not already shared in the book, Love Alone Prevails. However, Baba has stressed that we should try to live in the present, in the now, and not be so concerned as much with the past or the future. So, bearing this in mind, I have chosen to concentrate on the years since Baba left us physically to remain internally within, and to find new meaning in these latter experiences in relation to MeherBaba's message of love and truth. Two excerpts seem to contain the substance of this later period's experience for me. One is the concept of consciousness, followed a few years later by the concept of awareness. And yes, along with these two concepts has been an intense and continual increasing longing to fathom God himself. This latter theme must be left for another occasion, for Baba puts the cap on it, as it were, by telling us in his book, God Speaks. God cannot be explained, he cannot be argued about, he cannot be theorized, nor can he be discussed and understood. God can only be lived. However, in searching deeply to fathom the concepts of consciousness and awareness, I encountered the following passages from MeherBaba. We are all, each one of us, meant to be happy. And who is within us is to be experienced as infinite happiness. And it can be done only through love for him, through the heart and not the intellect. And on another occasion, Baba said, the only important thing is to see God everywhere and in everyone, and to become one with him. The goal of life is to know God, the Infinite One, in everyday life. And all this existence is to gain that goal. Now, whilst our theme today is awareness, or I would say the significance of awareness, I feel a brief introduction to the concept of consciousness is not out of place, for it has led me to a far deeper understanding of the concept of awareness. Baba states, spiritual progress is not a process of accumulation from without. It is an unfoldment from within. It came to me naturally that there must be a consciousness of Baba within, where God always told us he is to be found as he really is. How I came to live up to the time of MeherBaba's dropping his physical form, so ignorant of the importance of this word consciousness, is a mystery. Perhaps living for 18 years in all with MeherBaba in India, and later from 1952 in Myrtle Beach, but with the privilege of corresponding with India, there seemed no need to be concerned with concepts such as this. Baba's form and Baba's presence were all-encompassing. Can you imagine anyone reading the discourses of God, all God speaks, and the eye not registering on this word consciousness, proving the truth of the saying that until the mind is ready to grasp what the eye sees, the words carry little or no impact. It was not until after MeherBaba dropped his physical form that the profound statements of his continually focused my attention, and led ultimately to a deep search and effort to understand consciousness and later awareness. Quoting MeherBaba, "In myself I am free, but in you all I am bound. But the binding is of my own doing, so that I might realize myself consciously in each one of you. And the second statement, I am ever conscious that I am in you, but you are never conscious that I am in you. Daily I support you and share your consciousness. Now I want you to uphold me and share my consciousness and share it with all with whom you work. Only recently have I begun to understand what Baba was doing with us in the early years in India. There was one fine thread on the canvas, and that fine thread concerned consciousness. I realized Baba's words that those who concentrate their lives on him gradually become identified with him in consciousness. Little by little, their humanity is absorbed into his divinity, and they become free. Going back to the 1930s and 1940s for a moment, to give but one example of how Baba worked on this very theme, any time of the day, during mealtime, playtime, work time, and perhaps while we were walking in the compound, suddenly Baba would gesture toward one of us with a slight raise of his hand indicating, what are you thinking? And why? Baba was working to bring our consciousness away from the self, away from the many objects of illusion and duality, with its wants and desires, to the one object of himself, or God. Apparently, to do this, he needed us to be with him and in his physical presence. I recall a statement of Baba's at the time, love me and obey me, and I will look after your spiritual life. Yes, he was our companion and our friend. I also recall another remark Baba made during this period, paraphrasing, what I am doing with you all now will affect everyone in the whole world later. In their time, they will be sharing in the work I am doing now. Needless to say, we were not cognizant of what Baba was doing or of what was happening to us. His tool, of course, was his love, his pure divine love. I only know that because of love, we wanted to please him. But simply, gently, spontaneously, Baba was shifting our consciousness to himself, to God, the one reality of consciousness, infinite love. Baba tells us, I have come not to teach, but to awaken. And I recall on one occasion when we were with Baba in India, he asked us what he meant by this statement. Then, before any of us could reply, Baba explained, I have come to awaken myself in all. And again, quoting Baba, the journey of the spiritual path, from beginning to end, is a journey from unconscious God to conscious God. The highest consciousness being infinite consciousness, divine love. When misdirected, it is illusion. When directed to reality, it is infinite. But whether from having reality for its object or bound to the objects of illusion, consciousness is one. All consciousness becomes infinite when it takes reality as the object of its consciousness. All apparent differences are different states of consciousness. Nothing comes, nothing goes. There is only the shifting of consciousness. Yes, the shifting of consciousness, or one could say the unfoldment from within. This is the work we all face today and every day. In the years after leaving India, and even more so after Baba dropped his physical form, I found my attention centered more internally, and in trying to fathom consciousness, I encountered another word, awareness. Was this something preceding or following consciousness? Was one the outcome or outgrowth of the other? During this time, I found a need to make choices and decisions which brought about greater responsibility in thought and action, and yes, a need for greater self-control. Did this too have something to do with awareness? And why was it only recently that I seemed to come across this word, awareness, so often in correspondence, newspaper articles, and on television, especially national and international news coverage? I could not fathom the difference between these words, consciousness and awareness, and yet I felt there was a difference. They were not synonyms. Then last November, during a visit to India, I had an opportunity one day to discuss the problem, for a problem it really was, with Eric. And during our discussion, he got up from his chair and went to his desk, and taking out a sheet of paper, he read the following, quote, "Awareness is a great help to me in my work. Signed, MeherBabaLibrary." That was all I needed. I was now deeply into the search for the true understanding of that word awareness as used by MeherBabaLibrary. And from this search, the following thoughts have emerged. In common usage, the words consciousness and awareness are used interchangeably, and by Baba too, it would seem. The dictionary uses these words as synonyms, and Baba uses the four words aware, conscious, awareness, consciousness interchangeably. Used casually, they appear to be little more than the term knowledge. But Baba sometimes seems to give a word a special meaning, and this he may do with these two words, awareness and consciousness. Baba's meaning of consciousness seems to refer to the action of the soul, by which the soul imagines, perceives, or comprehends. This consciousness is complete, Baba tells us, in the human form, but it is fettered and limited by the accumulation of endless ego impressions gathered over a period of innumerable births and deaths. Awareness, in Baba's special meaning, would be the breaking or wearing down of these fetters and bindings on consciousness. Thus, awareness could be thought of as the expansion of consciousness. Baba wants us to become more aware. Really, awareness is a gift from him. When conscious activity expands, what do we become aware of? We become more aware of the one reality and the oneness of all things, instead of conscious of the manyness of illusion. So to become aware must be closely tied to the awakening of intuition, to a contact or union with God within us. As we become aware of God within, we simultaneously become aware of God without, or outside as well, and also of a breaking down of the distinction between within and without. This is awareness, the consciousness of God in everything. This consciousness of God's omnipresence leads to the further sense of His omnipotence, that His hand is in all that happens. This too, we may say, is a part of awareness. When Baba dropped his physical form, he became more available to everyone, everywhere, because he was no longer limited to his form by our consciousness. As he tells us, I come amidst mankind to maintain my own creation of illusion. thereby also awakening humanity to become more aware of it. And through me you automatically discard illusion when you are made aware of its falseness. Even before dropping his physical form, Baba encouraged his followers to find him within themselves, not to rely on his form. Now we must all seek to find him within, for that is the true source of awareness. The more we can be alert to his presence within, the more intuition grows, and the more awareness of his own reality grows. Baba sowed the seed of awareness in our hearts. He is the divine gardener who will see that seed grow and eventually bear fruit. In a human form, consciousness is complete, yet we have no awareness of full consciousness. We must develop full awareness in order to experience full consciousness, which Baba says is the beginning and ending of life. Life begins in consciousness, and if there is an end, it's an end in consciousness, infinite consciousness, divine love. Awareness, Baba tells us further, is the result of impressions, and as one grows older, one becomes aware of the gross world according to one's experiences. A story from Erich Jesawala illustrates this point. Erich was with Baba in Pune when word came that Erich's father was very ill. And after seeing Baba, he died the following day. On the way to the funeral, Baba gestured, "Death, what is it?" Then he explained that just as normal body functions are necessary to the body's health and nourishment, the health of the soul requires its nourishment in the form of experience. Although the human form throws off the body, when the soul has absorbed the experience for which it has come, the soul does not leave, it is always present. Erich commented that his earlier consciousness of death was now with an awareness that Baba had given him through this experience of the true meaning of death. I mentioned in my book a quote from the writer Maurice Nicole, quote, "Life does not always grow from the present, but in many active points, lying in life that spreads forwards or backwards." This reminds me of a personal experience that may add to the significance of Baba's great gift to us of awareness. It was part of the early years of my life that on a Saturday morning, the day when there was no school, and added to other many small duties, my mother had the 3 or 4 of us of suitable age, out of a family of 9, we met in the nursery to read together and learn by heart passages chosen by her from both the Old and the New Testaments. I am sure we were not pleased, but such was the part of the Victorian era in a Protestant environment. And I remember very clearly the passages of Scripture chosen. Today I realize how enriching they were in experience, expression and meaning, and I can only be grateful. Unfortunate indeed, it seems to me, is the absence of including in education or culture the matchless and profound beauty of these same eternal truths. Amongst them, for example, are passages from the prophet Isaiah in chapter 55, the whole chapter, which begins, "Ho, everyone that thirsteth, come ye to the waters, and he that hath no money, come ye buy and eat. Yea, come buy wine and milk without money and without price," foretelling the coming of the Christ. And David's psalm, perhaps we all know this, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in the green pastures, and he leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. And then turning to the New Testament, as St. Paul's letter to the Corinthians. Though I speak with the tongue of men and of angels and have not love, I am become as a sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith that I could remove mountains and have not love, I am nothing. And Jesus' words in St. John's Gospel, let not your heart be troubled. Ye who believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. But there are still two passages which for over 70 years have been my most constant companions. From the Epistle to the Hebrews are these words, faith is the substance of things hoped for, and the evidence of things not seen. And the second passage, I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. There was neither mature consciousness nor awareness, however, until after the experience of many years with MeherBaba, when these words gradually began to take on meaning, enhanced by an inner awareness, Baba's gift to each of us, the awakening within through the expansion of consciousness. Is it not life's experience that brings up to the surface what is already there, in this case awareness? And this is what Baba has come to awaken. Not consciousness which was there in its completion at the time of human birth, but the awakening and unfoldment of a consciousness of the unconscious, which in its final aspect is infinite consciousness or divine love. Perhaps you will recall the message from Baba's discourse entitled The Avatar, in which he tells us, those who are spiritually awake have been aware for some time that the world is at present in the midst of a period such as always precedes avataric manifestations. Even unawakened men and women are becoming aware of it now. From their darkness they are reaching out for light. In their sorrow they are longing for comfort. From the midst of the strife into which they have found themselves plunged, they are praying for peace and deliverance. Does this not fulfill Baba's statement to Empress in Nashik in India in 1937? And he said, I've come to bring about a revolution in man's thinking, the slowest of all revolutions. This spiritual awakening is reflected in a practical awareness that we observe in so many of Baba's followers and others who are involved with prison reform, child abuse, and many other aspects of social work. And it is also reflected in a general awareness of the critical situations throughout the world today. For example, over 40 million raised for Ethiopia and help for Africa and India. Surely this is one aspect of spiritual awareness in practical form to which Baba has awakened us all and made us, if not fully aware, at least more aware to the extent of participation and sharing in various kinds of service work, which carries out Baba's words of bringing knowledge where there is ignorance and strength where there is weakness. We have touched on two aspects of awareness, the mystical and the practical. But there is also another perspective we have not yet considered, that of scientific awareness. This concept, Baba emphasized, would play its part in spreading his message when he manifested or broke his silence, a voice out of the silence which would be heard throughout the world. Baba did not say in what way awareness was a great help to him in his work, and we cannot confine the concept to just two avenues of approach, the mystical and the practical. Baba's work touched on all aspects of life, including working with the must, the poor, the helpless, and the disabled. We too, I feel, must not limit our vision. Where would we be without the awareness of men and women such as Newton, Einstein, Madame Curie, Pascal, and many others, if their perception and vision had not persevered to prove their discoveries? Awareness does, I believe, include advances in science and technology, which can be used for solving worldwide problems. Therefore, before closing, I would like to share a few excerpts from a letter I received recently. Less than a month ago, I thought I had nothing more to add to these few thoughts and sharing of ideas, when very late one evening, long-distance telephone rang, and a Baba follower, one quite unknown to me, asked, "Are you Kitty?" "Oh, yes," I answered, and he began to express a vision he had recently received concerning a scientific technology leading to an awareness that could alleviate world poverty. A quotation from the New Testament comes to my mind, quote, "And it shall come to pass in the last days, saith God, I will pour out of my Spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men will dream dreams." And it came to me in a flash, why yes, we have not considered the tremendous growth of awareness in relation to science and technology. And Baba has told us not to divide life into compartments, emphasizing that all knowledge comes from God, and that life in its various directions is, if correctly applied, can be helpful towards fulfilling God's universal plan. The caller on the phone was so full of enthusiasm and so fully aware that I could not help but feel inspired by his vision. From this perspective, problems such as world hunger, resource shortages, economic stagnation and poverty seem insurmountable. This view holds that problems on Earth must be solved on Earth. However, within our solar system are solutions beyond our imagination. The combination of virtually unlimited raw materials and energy will transform Earth's resources. To give several examples, if you place a transatlantic call, it is likely to go straight up 22,000 miles to a communication satellite, then down again for each utterment. If you know someone who wears a pacemaker or had a CAT scan, their lives were probably saved in part by space nectology. And these examples don't solve problems such as hunger, poverty, and the helplessness that accompanies them. The potential of space within our solar system is to transform life on Earth. Many scientists agree that we have adequate technology to begin solar manufacturing. The problem, however, is that of perspective, which is frustrating our efforts of human betterment. Most people view solar advances as pertaining to the distant future, the region of dreams. But they would be excited about space technology if only they had an awareness of how much it has already contributed to our lives and how much more it has to contribute. For instance, by building solar-powered satellites, solar radiation could be converted into electricity that could be directed anywhere on earth to end world poverty. How various antiquated farming methods, especially in third world countries, for example, could be replaced by solar-powered electricity, which could be used to pump seawater into deserts and then distilled for irrigation. Earth is only a small speck within its solar system. An age of enlightenment is dawning, and space technology will play a large part. This age will be characterized by the removal of limits upon human awareness. We stand at the outer edge of this We stand at the inner edge of this new age. We are through the crosswords. Now it's up to each one of us to develop our full potential. Awareness that our limits are illusions, and spreading that awareness to others will play a key part. From the beginning, Baba told us, it is not practical to have spiritual ideals without putting them into practice. To realize the ideal in daily life, to give beautiful, adequate form to the living spirit, this is being practical in the truest sense of the word. The following statements of Baba's on awareness may be helpful before I close. These are Baba's quotes. My advent is not to destroy illusion, because illusion as it is absolutely nothing. I come to make you aware of the nothingness of illusion. As infinite life, I experience myself as everyone and everything. I enjoy and suffer through you to make you aware that you are infinite. And from 1962, many of us remember hearing Baba say these words, I have suffered these things in silence for all my children. It is time they become aware of the presence of their Father in their midst and of their responsibility towards Him and themselves. And once before a period of seclusion, Baba stated, I want you so to live in accord and to maintain cordial relations with all during my 6 months of seclusion, which will test to the utmost your forbearance, thus making you aware of the extent of my love for you. And during his last year, when Baba was seriously ill and suffering greatly, he said, you are bliss yourself. To make you aware of it, I come amongst you and suffer infinite agony.
It was he, not I, knocking at the door. It was he within. I caress my own breast, for there he is hidden. No one else knows you, since you are I. I know you. Forms become a trifle when feeling and intuition richly intensify. In the end, a man tires of everything except hearts desiring, souls journeying. Sultan, saint, pickpocket. Love has everyone by the ear, dragging us to God by secret ways. I never knew that God too desires us.
And we'll now just close saying of Baba's before we close. I have come to sow the seed of love in your hearts, that in spite of all superficial diversity which your life in illusion must experience and endure, the feeling of oneness through love may be brought about amongst all nations, creeds, sects and castes of the world. MeherBaba. I don't think there's any questions you have to ask, is there? I think the sun is calling you all without. So we'll say goodbye.
Oh, wait, we have...
Oh, I see.
One question. question here. Can you stand up, please?
The 7 realities that Baba gave us. Like he gave us, from the very first year, I think, that he was with us, the 7 realities. They begin, the only real existence is God. And I think the second one, the only real love is love for God. And it goes down until it comes to number 7. And number 7 is this. The only real surrender is that when your poise is never disturbed by any outside event. And that the individual, in spite of anything that happens to him, remains completely undisturbed, accepting all as the God of will, as God's will. I'm thinking those words over lately. I think that's really another way of Baba saying to us when he first came, don't worry, be happy. Baba, we wouldn't have understood it if Baba had talked about surrender and poise and all that sort of thing. But the more I read those words, that the only real surrender is when your poise under all circumstances remains undisturbed. And that is another word of saying, just don't worry. Because it's as soon as you worry, your poise is affected, isn't it? And also, Baba says to that, don't worry, be happy. But he also adds something which sometimes gets left out, which is, don't worry, be happy, do your best. So I think that one of the ways not to worry is to do in every situation what you believe to be the best. And even if it doesn't come out the right way, Baba says the very fact of your motive being as pure as it can be, which you're doing what Baba asked you to do, which was to do your best under every circumstance, we should not worry. But Baba also said, again, he said, you will go on worrying to the very end. He said it's the hardest thing not to do, and therefore I don't ask you to succeed, I only ask you to try. And he's always said the victory under all circumstances is mine. In whatever you're doing, the victory is mine. What I want from you is that you put forward your best. I mean, to the best that we can. And I think the best we can do is to try to please Baba. I think that's the best thing to live by all today. Don't worry about anything else. Feel that you're walking along the razor's edge. You have all the time, morn, noon and night, you have a choice. Is it this or is it that? And your answer is always, well, which would please Baba best? Going to the left or going to the right? That's for you to make the decision. But Baba emphasized and emphasized and emphasized, do try to please me. That was right through from the very beginning from India.
Okay.
Yes?
We did promise Kitty that we're going to keep her more than an hour. So she'll be
I don't mind. I don't mind.
She'll be on the panel. So one more question, and then we'll have to close. Louise?
Yes.
What do you find is finding God in yourself?
I think it's a growing, to begin with, I think it's something that grows, and you're not going to find it all at once. It's taken me 51 years nearly to take it. And I'm talking to you all very young. But I think that I would say it is to try to please him, because in trying to please him, you're not thinking of yourself. And the less you think of yourself, the more you will be more aware of your real self, which is Baba. I think I can only say just try it, but it might be something different for each one of you, mightn't it? I feel like asking somebody, well now, how do you best find Baba within? Because I'm sure it's an individual thing. Baba hasn't laid down a law. He says, just love me and obey me and leave the rest to me. And remember, try, I think, to keep that poise. Don't let that poise get undisturbed. Because Baba says that is the real surrender. And surrender, Baba puts above obedience and love. Yes? Right? Any other questions?
No.
say once again how deeply I appreciate having been asked, and I know it has come through, I'm very bad at names, but what's the name? Oh yes, no. Filis, of course. Frederick. She was kind enough to write and ask me if I'd come. I said, it's 7 years ago since I came, and I'll do my best to come today. And by Baba's help, I'm here, well and strong, and have enjoyed very much being with you.